And again, many people, including poets like Kalidasa, they had dreams or visions, and to a great extent it was materialized by people like Chandragupta and Samudragupta. The political unity of India was also thought of. If not, the whole fourth canto of Raghuvamsha becomes meaningless. And the Vishnu Purana clearly mentions Uttaram yat samudrasya himadrascheva dakshinam varsham tad bharatam nama bharati yatta santatihi. Towards the southern direction of Himalaya and towards the northern side of the mighty ocean, what the land, what the space, and that is called India. And the people who live there, they are called Bharatas, Bharati Yatra Santati, like that. We have hundreds of such references in Puranas and many more such references in the Vedas and Itihasas too. Well, however, one country's, one nation's life and living, it is decided by so many material features also, so many realistic features also that we cannot ignore. And here when we notice in India, India is surrounded by ocean in the three sides and by the mighty Himalayas in the fourth side. We all know from the school books itself, we get to know that. And so it had an amount of secluded atmosphere, and that's why it develops its original culture, like that people say. But Yale Bhasham and others, they don't agree with that. They say India was not secluded in that sense. It had well connections over the seas and over the land also. So it was not a self-imposed seclusion or seclusion of ignorance. It was a convenient seclusion that was there. And it developed India. And the other thing is, mighty Himalayas, they divided India from the rest of Asia. And naturally, it became the fountainhead of so many rivers. And fortunately, 90% of the rivers emerging from the glaciers of Himalaya, they flow southwards. So naturally, they come to India and not to China and Mongolia and other places. If not, the fate of India would be something else, would have been something else. And at the center of India, we have the Vindhya mountain ranges. It again generates so many rivers. And all along the two coastal sides, the two coasts of India, especially the Western Ghats, which are more mightier, they start from the center of Ceylon and go up to Rajasthan. These Western Ghats, they have many more rivers. So India is one rare country which has maximum number of rivers, small and bigger. This type of river networking is not at all seen in Europe or in other parts of Asia, maybe in Africa and South America, but they don't have a country, a civilization, a culture like India, which is eternal in so many aspects. Ancient world was limited to northern portion of Africa, Egypt, and then Middle East, and some portions of Mediterranean Sea, that is around Mediterranean Sea, the Greek Roman civilization, and of course China. But all these places, they never had any great river, any great network of rivers. They had rivers, of course. Euphrates and Tigris was there for the Mesopotamian civilization. And then we had the Nile for the Egyptian civilization. And the Greeks had no mighty rivers. And even the Romans, they didn't have. And even the China. But the Indians have not just one or two rivers, many, many rivers. And that's why we have so many rivers. And so many eulogizing passages in the Vedas also. In no world literature we have so many hymns devoted to rivers. I am now writing a novel in Kannada, essentially concentrating on this aspect of India. And you see, so many people, they invaded India, they changed the names of our cities, but not rivers. We only changed the names of rivers. Yamuna became Jamuna. But no way we have. No Islamic name is kept to any Indian river. They came from the place where no river existed. And they never had any thought of sanctity for rivers. They had sanctity for a place and other things, but not for rivers. River is such a dynamic thing. It is static and at the same time dynamic. The water flowing in the river is not the same at any instance. Yet it is the same river, it is the same Ganga, same Kaveri, like that we say. Indescribability of oneness of the river, indescribability of eternity of the river is felt, and that is the real essence of dynamic dynamic equilibrium, and that is Indian culture, and for that matter, that is the universal philosophy which I am trying to forge here. In that sense, it's very symbolic and metaphoric when we think of India having chain of rivers. And in the Puranas, we have Sapta Sindhus of North India, Sapta Sindhus of South India, Sapta Sindhus of Eastern India, and Sapta Sindhus of Northern India, and Sapta Sindhus of Central India. So we have 5 Sapta Sindhus, 35 major rivers. What it means, we are blessed with so many such things, and India is very unique physically. And this uniqueness brought many calamities also. And yet we are living. We are still enthusiastic and positive. Today, maximum number of youngsters are found in India, nowhere else. Is it not a great hope? China may be a mighty force emerging as a giant in the near future itself, but China has not as many youngsters as we have. Not as many as free thinking youngsters as we have. That's very, very important. And not to speak of Europe and Japan, they are nothing but the paradises or infernos of older generations. And America has youth power, but its populace is very, very insignificant when compared to ours. Like river which becomes young in every monsoon, so is Indian population. Earlier we used to say population is the sin, is the burden, and it is the negative qualification of India, but now it is not. Because of population, we can produce and market within ourselves. No problem. We need not wait for anybody outside. See, that's why Dasha Putran Kridhi, like that, what Veda says, it's very good. So, like a river which energizes in every rainy season, we should become youthful. We should become young and energetic. And in India, we have plenty of rivers, and naturally mountains and forests. And yet, we have some climatic disorders also. Ativrishti and Anavrishti. Famine and flood. The 2 F's, they trouble India very much. Can we not manage? Here we have to think positively and do something. Should we not do something for the famine and something to check the floods, save the flood waters, and then overcome the famine? Such things can always be done. There comes civilization and there comes shatra. But we have plenty of resources that is always available. And the mountains, and then not to speak about the deposits of minerals and ores. In that sense also, India is not just rich superficially, even underground also it is very rich. Not on the surface of the earth, even beneath the earth also, even beneath the surface also we have plenty of wealth available. So, in that way India is blessed, thrice blessed, 7 times blessed than many other countries. And now we have the other feature, one rainy season in India. It is not found in many temperate countries. It's the feature of tropical countries. And yet in tropical countries, not such civilization developed. You see, tropical country means near the equator. Then we have to go to South America and then South Africa. Both the places we don't have civilizations, we may have culture, primitive culture, as we say. Culture that never developed beyond the tribal society. But in India, that tribal culture, that primitive culture, graduated to the level of civilization and supra-civilization, super-civilization. It's a very rare thing to happen in the tropical zones, but that has happened in India. Means the combination of flesh and spirit is very rare to happen, and that has happened here. Means we can restore that, we can continue that, and we can as well uplift also. This we should never forget. And the monsoons, they provide waters to so many tropical countries. The far eastern tropical countries are there, Java, Sumatra, Bali, and many more. But in all these places, culture means we have to see the Indian culture only. Starting from Japan, we have much of Indian culture, and that's a bloodless revolution. Everywhere Christianity went, and Islam went, and communism went, and they had nothing but blood, nothing but a brutal massacre of the natives, and an unpardonable thing has happened, and it's the bloodiest annals in the chapters of history. But Indians never did that. Should we take that as a great pride, or should it be classified under inability? One way, inability also. We should be ready to defend ourselves and even try to offend at times. And here, this shatra is lagging. Again and again, we see at least during some 2000 years in the history of India, it's a very, very sizable period of time, we have lost shatra. If not, why we should have waited for the enemies to come to the lands, plains, and face them? Whether it is Babur or whether it is the British, everywhere we have the same Panipat. Panipat place is the Kurukshetra, and there only the Devas and Asuras fought, and it is the place where even the Kauravas and Pandavas fought. Well, it is the internal fight. It shall become the battlefield of internal fight. But with the external onslaught, why we should invite them up to that? We knew that Khyber and Bolar, the passages from which the Hindu Kush passage, from which all the enemies, they came to India. All the invaders came to India. We should not have stopped them. And we know our Vedic ancestors, they migrated from India to other countries, both on land and sea routes. And land route means that was the only Khyber pass through which we people went to Europe, Central Asia, and other places. Having known the importance of that stretch, and having become so powerful and dynamic merchants, India's are best baniyas. The Vanijya, Vartakya as we call Krishi, Goraksha, Vanijya, our ancestors did a wonderful job. And so our natural resources were very well transformed into wealth of the global order. And naturally we had thoroughfare, and art historians know the importance of Silk Route. It's again that stretch. Why we didn't check that? Even the Hunas, Shakas, the Scythians are called Shakas and the Huns are called Hunas. They came up to Ujjaini, and then Vikramaditya or Samudragupta or Chandragupta or even Skandagupta, they fought. Why they didn't check? And here we see so much of lagging behind. And this is the weakness of Kshatra, and this should never be forgotten, unpardonable. Even today, that is the thing which is pulling down India so much. For we had to become more stronger. In that sense, we did a bloodless revolution. It's only by trade connections and artistic connections and religious connections, religion, art, and trade, with the three in the far eastern countries, starting from Cambodia, Champa as we call, and then Burma, of course we have Thailand, Suvarnadvipa, Java, Bali, Sumatra, Singapore, Simhapuri, all places we have Indian culture in abundance. Even today, in spite of Islamic upper hand there, we have Indian culture and we did it. But now we are losing there because of the lack of kshatra. We should have had something like shatra. Well, we shall be proud of it and yet be aware of realities. Many historians and social cultural anthropologists, they say, and even Will Durant opines, and even E.L. Bhasham also says, Indian climate is one of the reasons for this. Indian climate is hot. And Will Durant very clearly says, too hot summer and general tropical climate has made Indians keep quiet, do nothing, and aspire nothing. Naturally, the climate is hot and we don't need much of clothing. Starting from shelter, we don't need that. As Akka Mahadevi says, Hasivadare bhikshannagaluuntu, Trishayadare kerebhavigaluntu, Malagalike padu degulagaluntu. As Vedanta Deshika says, Shilam kimanalam bhave danalam audaram badhitum payah prasati purakam kimana dharakam sarasam ayatna malamallakam pati patacharam kacharam bhajanti vibudha muda hyaha kukshitah. As even Shankara says, Karatala bhiksha tarutala vasaha. Bark of the trees as garments, trees as the shelter, and river water for drinking, and bhiksha for food. That's all enough. What else we need? So this professional poverty, did it promoted professional poverty? And in winter countries, in the temperate and cold countries, protecting from cold itself is a great business. It's a hell lot of business and whole life has to be spent over that. We need good, strong buildings, good clothing. Means so much of technology, so much of engineering and all has to be developed. Practicality is very important. And just to take one parallel, not that India completely was devoid of this sense. We have our Malnad, the coastal and the Western Ghat section of India, especially the Karnataka and Kerala. There we see heavy rains. For 3 or 4 months, they have to face the challenges of rains. They cannot go out. They have to collect, starting from food grains. They have to protect the cattle and all that. And that's why you see, though I belong to the plains of Karnataka, so-called Bailsime, the two southern Karnataka, known for laziness, known for unaccountability, I always admire the coastal and the Malnad people, especially the coastal people. On one side the mountains, on one side the vast ocean, sea, and the hostility of the saline water and the escalating rocky structures, superstructures to the next, and sandwiched between these two, not a space is much wider than 25 miles at any rate. And that's the narrow stretch of South Canara. And there we see so much of entrepreneurship, so much of dynamism, and so much of commitment for righteousness, industriousness, shrewdness, everything. It means we need that fighting zeal, and that is there in India, but not in many parts of India. So Will Durant and other people, they say, the climate in general is hostile to any activity. In summer, we can't do anything. Just we have to relax, drinking some water and then fanning our body with bare minimum clothes. So, in spite of so much of sun's heat and long days and other things, we could not do anything. And material pursuit. But that is even not complete truth. We achieved so many things, but yet that fighting zeal will be lacking to an extent because of this. That's how the people opine. And also natural resources. But the same thing can be used as a great advantage. Now you see, China has almost no sun. Now old age is cropping up. And so SON sun is also rare in China, and SUN sun too. Now because of the solar and other possibilities, can we not use our scorching summer as a great asset? We can use, we must use, we have to use it. In that sense, we can become industrious also. Our ancestors, in spite of that, they did so much that we should never forget. We should be genuinely proud of their achievements. Then we have the other thing for India is the forests, the dense forests. Naturally, we have to fight against this. Generally, the ancient civilizations, they were developed in arid space. Just take the Persian civilization or the Egyptian civilization as an example. And even the Indian civilization, also the Vedic civilization in the Kurukshetra, or the continuation of that, the later Vedic or the Sutra period as it is called now, the Indus civilization, which is even today existing in our textbooks, wretched textbooks there. It has to be called as Sindhu Saraswati civilization. There, the land is more arid, no denser forests are seen there, because forest used to be a great impediment, a great challenge in front of them to develop their civilization, and deforestation was inevitable, and it was very difficult also. And that's why even today it is very difficult to penetrate into the dense forests of northeastern India. And even in those days, it was much more difficult. And that's why that part was not explored to a great extent. And even the southern India, Dandakaranya as it is called, Dravida Desha, Dhru means trees, Ila means in plentitude, Dhru plus Ila they become Dravina, and Ladayor Abhedaha, so it is Dravida. And Dravida is the southern plateau, Deccan plateau, full of mountains and forests. Why I am saying these things? So, in spite of these, our ancestors developed. And that's why we see a lot of civilizational activities only in the arid places, only in the portion where the rivers enter into the sea, as we call Nadi Mukha or the river mouth, and that place. And that's why if you make an archaeological survey map, you just watch through the archaeological survey map of the Harappan relics, all along the southern coast, we see hundreds and hundreds of evidences. And even the Kutch of Gujarat, starting from there, we have till the Mahabalipuram, everywhere we see, because, and our ancestors, they thought of moving in the river, in the sea route is a convenient thing than moving by the land route. And that's why they took the coastal survey and they did it. And now many scholars are proving it. And wonderful research is going on. You can as well refer to Kalyan Raman or S.R. Rao or Navaratna Ram and many more. Why I am saying all these things, they had different challenges, and we have that advantage, and we can materialize so many things which were not in those days. The other feature is the rains, the monsoon rains. This has decided the fate of India. To understand culture, we have to think of the material existence. That's why I'm saying. With this note on monsoon, I shall complete this session and will be going for question answers session. Here, monsoon has a specific time. Since many centuries we have that, generally from the end of May to the beginning of October, we have a long spread rainy season. Like the spring of Europe, we have the monsoon. And this is called Varsha Kala in Sanskrit. And Varsha represents a time, Varsha, season. And bharatvarsha is a land. So time and space both are represented by the same word. I find lot of spiritual connotations here. Space and time, they are the ultimate things. They are the ultimate things which we can comprehend to a subtlest level. That has been termed in one word, that has been denoted in one word, means the unison of space and time. And that is called experience. What is experience? Where space and time become one and they cease to exist. And India's name, Bharatvarsha, as the Hathigumpha edict of Kharvela in Orissa, in the capital of Orissa, that is Bhuvaneshwara, near the outskirts of Bhuvaneshwara, we have few Jain caves, and in one of the caves we have the carvings, the edict of Kharvela going to 2nd century BC. He mentions in Prakrita bharatvarsha. It is bharatvarsha. Since then, at least we have the evidence to show that bharatvarsha means our ancestors had recognized the unity of space and time. So, rainy season has a marked role to play in India. If that is well balanced and well used, so many our natural disasters, physical calamities, and even the other human calamities that occur in various forms will all be solved. Just take this rainy season only hampered the victory of Paurava or Porus, who fought against Alexander. Because of the rains on the banks of Jhelum, Vitasta, he could not win. All these things, they make one point sure, that is, the rains have a decided role to play. And that's why even in our poetry we see, whether it is the Tamil Sangam poetry or whether it is the Prakrit poetry of Hala, Amaruka, Hala, Satavahana in Gatha Saptashati, or the poetry of Kalidasa in Sanskrit, the Meghadutam, everywhere we see that. And Kalidasa, the one and the only national poet of our nation, not many people are national poets. They may be given the title, but Kalidasa is the national poet. And the national poets here are Vyasa and Valmiki. Kalidasa has represented the spirit of India and Indians in the most wonderful manner. In this Meghaduta, he is very clearly shown that. So, to understand India, one should understand the seasonal changes of India and how they affect in different landscapes, and how the lifestyle is changed, the society changes, the civilizational challenges they change, and how culture is developed. So all these things have to be borne in mind when we think of culture. Well, with this, I give you a break for question and answers. And one introductory line before that. I have seen in the mails all that you expect from the sessions, and you people are very, very ambitious, and I am a very small retail shop owner. I am not a wholesale dealer. I may have half a dozen of different soaps and 5 or 6 varieties of cigarette packs and few condiments and sweets, not more than that. But you people are expecting in terms of loads and loads of such commodities. So I don't know to what extent all the aspirations of yours will be covered, all the expected things will be covered, but most of it will be covered at least in the form of a seed, in germs that may be covered as well. And with that in your mind, you please ask questions connected with that session so that it will not go astray. Because if you question something, somebody wanted to know something regarding Avadhanam, that may not be relevant to this session, that may be relevant in the session of arts. So please try to focus on the discussion which has happened now. Okay.
We have a question.
If you have
Please.
questions, please write them down. That's better.
The question is, the West has progressed materially and given us tangible products. Does that mean that we do not acknowledge the works of rishis like Bharatvarsha with yantras and metallurgy, Atri with meteorology? How is it appropriate to include this, or do we just discard this? In the same way, if in future the West does work in Dharma and spirituality, do we stop talking about Apastamba Dharma Sutra? Well, okay. One caustic question. The person who has sent this question, has he studied Bharatvarsha Svaimanika Shastra? Is it a picked up wisdom? Sorry to say, I have read Bharatvarsha Svaimanika Shastra cover to cover. I am very happy that our esteemed friend, artist, Srimati Anupama Hoskere has sent it. We know since decades And I do agree that our rishis did, but one thing, Bharatvarsha's Vaimanik Shastra is not a single mathematical equation. Being a science student, and Anupama holds 2 master degrees in engineering, that unless a thing is reduced to the level of mathematics, we can't say with all confidence that this happened. Bharatvarsha's Vaimanik Shastra, in all probability, it's concoction. It's a fictitious work. It cannot materialize anything. But that is not so with Bhaskaracharya, or it's not so with Aryabhata or others. Bharatvarsha's Vaimanik Shastra is a work which has gained supremacy, unfortunately, eclipsing so many genuine works. It's a product of imagination and not of material erudition. Well, at the same time, we do have material development, but for today's world, what has happened, all that material development will go to part of history and it will not become part of present science. Science and technology, they work at the level of contemporaneity, and history of science is something else. We shall be really proud of we people achieving the innovations like zero or Mehruli pillar or whatever. I will be dealing these things. And at the same time, if the West takes up spirituality and other things, should we ignore? Never, never. I never mean that. But what I mean is, any achievement has to be tangible. For example, we say that we had Garudastra, Brahmastra and other things. Do we have anything, any technology now? I have gone through the Dhanurveda completely. But just by reciting Gayatri in different manners, so many astras can be produced. Show any of the Swamijis, any of the people who are champions of the Vedas, who could recite Veda from front to back and back to front and all that, could they achieve one Nagastra or one Sarpastra or one Aindrastra or Varunastra? No. When they cannot do anything, they should keep quiet. Because Siddhim prachasva mavidyam, so says Subhashita. If you achieve it, if you could produce it, then all objections will be silenced. If you cannot achieve it, any amount of shouting will not come to use. Vikriyantena ghantabhi gavakshira vivarjitaha. Just by tying jingling golden bells around the necks of barren cows, they cannot be milched. So, this has to be borne in mind. That's why I am saying, in respecting our country's heritage, we should never ignore track of objectivity. At the same time, objectively we shall respect it, prize it. So, I am not an advocate of West. I am neither an advocate of West or blind advocate of East. I am here an advocate of truth. Again, showing with examples. Please, can you explain the order in which the Vedas come down? Well, I will be explaining all these things in detail. That's why I said, today's discussion, please. This question I could not know. Opinion of connecting rivers. Okay. Well, I don't know. I am not an expert. I am not even nearby that. So I don't have my concrete opinion on that. But many people who are well versed in that, they find both advantages and disadvantages. It has to be thought out. But having the rivers as they are now, we can do so many wonderful things also, as it has been done in Gujarat. Hence, we have to utilize our river power, and that is very essential, starting from the creeks, that can be said. And the reality of Mahabharata and Ramayana, I will be discussing that later. What is the difference between culture and religion? Very beautiful. Religion is faith. Culture is experience. Of course, it is experience through the sense organs. Through the body and mind, what we experience is culture. But religion is entirely based on faith, and that is of the mind. So, religion is part of culture, but culture cannot become part of religion. Means, culture contains so many aspects In there, religion is also one cherished aspect. Religion by itself, we cannot say whether it is good or bad. Just by faith, one cannot say he is good or bad. Having that faith, what he is doing and what he is turning out, that is very, very important. When we see from that angle, more than the faith, the end result is very, very significant. And here, religion has only a secondary role to play. The fundamental aspect of religion should be spirituality. And of course, in India, it is always so. Spirituality is darshana or tattva. Tattva has to be the bedrock of religion. And at the operating level, religion comes. Philosophy by itself may become dry intellectuality. And religion by itself may end up in superstition. So, practice of spirituality has so many dimensions, and one dimension is art, another dimension is moral, some other dimension is science and technology, and some other dimension is religion. All are essential, but if religion goes beyond its limitations, it is the duty of spirituality to make it tamed and tame it, tune it, prune it, and then keep it at the right place. If the right place is not shown, religion will turn out to be a havoc. Few people say, you may you may belong to any religion, but follow Indian culture. In this sense, what is the difference between culture and religion? Yes, very, very important question. One may belong to any religion, but should follow Indian culture. Yes, I agree. In spirit, 100% I agree. But there are certain religions where they are hostile to Indian culture, because their very nature is that all religions are not equal. The first and foremost dictum one has to understand, something like water finds its level, sun rotates on its own axis, so is all religions are not equal. It's a universal truth. It's not a convenient truth, it's not a convenient statement, and it is not a notion, it is not a hypothesis, it is fact. And religion should be at the personal level, at the most at the family level. If it comes to the social level and try to influence the political scenario, then it is very, very dangerous. And that's why instead of religion, we have to go to Dharma. In Indian context, Dharma and religion are two distinctly different things. But in many other things, many other countries, religion has place and Dharma has been completely sidelined, and it has taken its asylum in ethics, in philosophy and in morality somewhere. So it has become the thing of minority. But in Sanatana Dharma, in Indian context, Dharma has taken shelter in majority, and it was always very, very strong. Why I am saying this? Dharma has nothing to do with belief. I will be discussing that in greater detail when I take up tomorrow's session or next session immediately. But anyhow, I shall say this much. In Manu, we have the definition of Dharma. Dharma is defined, is identified by these 10 aspects. Dhritihi, Kshama, Damaha, Ahimsa, Shaucham, Indriya Nigraha, Dhihi, Vidya, Satyam, Akrodha, Dashakam, Dharma Lakshanam. Dhriti means steadfastness. It is one contained in one's own self. Firmness, independence, and self-sufficiency, and that is called dhriti. Kshama means withstanding power, not just showing one cheek after the other. If somebody wants to slap on our face. Kshama is the withstanding power. It's the willful withstanding power. That is the confidence and sustenance. Dhamma means controlling the external sense organs. Shama is controlling the internal sense organs. There is the mind. Dhriti, Kshama, Dhamma, Ahimsa. Ahimsa is, of course, non-violence of any order. Non-violence at the level of thought, at the level of speech, and even at the level of action. Shaucha is purity. Purity of thought, speech, and action. Then Indriya Nigraha, there it comes the internal control, Antarindriya, mind. Here we have Dhamma, Shaucha, and Indriya Nigraha are very close to each other. Almost the same virtue has been stressed thrice. It indicates the importance, because at the level of workability, one has to be correct, means we should have so much of importance and so much of repeated enforcement. Dhihi, wisdom. You see, in the Dharma Lakshana, Dhi is there. Mostly religions are always devoid of wisdom. A religious person, especially in all its meanness as taken from the Western connotation, ignorance can be synonymous to religion. So, Dhihi, Vidya means erudition. Wisdom is something and erudition is something else. Wisdom paves the way for erudition, and erudition enhances the possibilities of wisdom. So, one thing is the infrastructure which is essentially present within Dhihi, and the other one is acquired. One the latent capability, and the other one is the acquired capability. Dhihi Vidya, Satyam, truth, of course. It is adhering to conviction which is based on scientific inquiry of universal experience. Akrodha means not too harsh, not to be too harsh. Quietude. Krodha, Dashakam, Dharma Lakshanam. So these 10 qualities, they structure the in and out of Dharma. And at another instance, this is from the second chapter of Manu, and from the fag end of Manu, he even reduces this into 5. Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteyam, Shaucham, Indriya Nigraha, Etam, Samasikam, Dharmam, Chaturvarne, Bravin Manu. Ahimsa, non-violence. Shaucha, purity. Satyam, Ahimsa, Satyam, Shaucham, Asteyam, non-avariciousness, not desirous to possess anybody's wealth. Ahimsa, Shaucham, Asteyam, Satyam, Asteyam, Shaucham, Satya, Ahimsa, Satya, truth, Asteyam, non-avariciousness, Shaucham, purity, and Indriya Nigraha, control over the internal and external sense organs. Here again, Shaucha and then Ahimsa, Indriya Nigraha, they are all working at the 3 levels of mind, speech and body, thought, action and speech. So here again, we don't have the reference of any God, any belief, any sacred book, any prophet. Can we equate this sort of dharma with religion? I again and again say, in many of my writings and even in my talks, I'll be stressing these things. That is the deadliest day, that's the ugliest day on which Dharma was taken as the synonymous of religion, and that was popularized everywhere. This should never happen. I very clearly use religion in some other context, and a suitable word for religion in Indian context, in the context of Indian languages, is mata. Mata means opinion. Religion is an opinion. Anybody can have any opinion, but he should confine it to himself. See, so beautifully it has been devised. So my religion is my opinion. I am bound by my opinion. I respect my opinion. See, for me, XYZ is the greatest singer. PQRS is the greatest poet. It's my opinion. I may have substantial justification also. But when I give my opinion, I should have justification. Without justification, if I give, somebody dismiss, I should keep myself quiet. Discussion can happen only based on justification that is logical and scientific. Opinions need not be logical, never be scientific. But discussions cannot be so. So whenever we enter into discussion means, you should have certain common ground, certain propositions, certain methodology, everything is prescribed, and Indian logic is fantastic in that. Ancient Indian logic, Prachina Nyaya, has done wonderful job there. So all these things, they go on. And so religion and dharma are entirely different. And so, mata is one of the aspects of culture. An enrichingly good culture will have good matas also. Like Bharatiya Sanskriti Indian culture has Shaiva, Vaishnava, Shakta, Bauddha, Jaina, so many matas, so many religions were there, are there. They coexisted. But all used to have the agreement with Samanya Dharma. That is very, very important. See, an example to show that we have the Chalukyas or the Hoysalas of Karnataka. Wherever they build their temples, they have enshrined all gods. Any Chalukya temple, hundreds of temples are there on the other banks of, other shore of bank of Tungabhadra. We have, you see, Tripurusha temples, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, and then Shakti and Surya. All these. And Hoysalas you take, at the center of any city or any town, they will be building Vishnu temple. At the northern direction, they would have Jaina Basdi. And on the northeastern corner, Ishanya, they will be having Shiva temple. These are the three main religions of those provinces. Shaiva, Vaishnava and Jaina. And many Buddhist viharas were there. Buddhists don't have temples. They have stupas and viharas. Viharas generally they are monasteries. Within that they used to have, unlike the temples and the basadis of Jains and Hindus. So these things are seen everywhere. And an example of Krishnadevaraya, he was a staunch, devoted Sri Vaishnavite, devoted to the Lord of Seven Hills. But every time he went to Tirupati or Tirumala, he made a visit to Kalahasti also. And even the Rajagopuram of Kalahasti recently, which had a crack and fell, unfortunately, in the secular presence, he, Krishnadevaraya, had the same donations being made to the Shiva temples there. And he wrote a work like Amuktamalida, one of the wonderful creations in Telugu literature, though his mother tongue is Tulu, the language of coastal Karnataka, and was called Kannada Ramaramana, Lord of Karnataka, and also called as Andhra Bhoja, took a theme from Tamil Nadu saint, poetess Andal, and wrote in Telugu. These things can happen very easily in Indian context because they understood the limitations of linguistic provinces, religions and other things. Abhinavagupta, a great champion of Shaivite philosophy, had made an ardent study of Buddhism, and his predecessor Anandavardhana was a devoted student of Shaivite philosophy, but by heart he loved Vaishnava and became devotee of Vishnu, and by all approach he was a Vedantin, Kevaladvaitin, and he wrote a wonderful commentary on a Buddhist text. There are hundreds and thousands of such examples. So this can happen only when we know the limitations of religion. Limitations means we are not speaking ill of it. See, I have only 5 fingers. Is it limitation or is it my folly? All fingers are unequal in shape and size. Is it a limitation or is it a definition? Limitations means definition. Only by the limits we can define a thing. Unlimited thing cannot be defined. So when that being the case, we have to see religion in that scientific approach. And for that Indian philosophy has contributed a great lot. And hence the non-Sanatana Dharmis of India, they have to respect Indian culture, means they have to accept that their religion also one among the religions of the world. But they are not ready. At least their religious heads are not ready. And they are predator religions. Our God is the envious God. And our prophet is the last prophet. And our prophet's word is the last word. Like that when they say. We don't say that. Even we say, in the very first Veda, Rig Veda, we have So Anga Veda, Yadivana Veda. Even the God knows the secret of creation or not. Can any religious book question like that? Durbhiksham Devalokeshu. The second book, the Veda, Yajurveda, Aranyaka, Aruna Prashna says, the heaven has famine, but not the earth. Can there be any such statement in Bible or in Quran? To be more specific? No. So, when they are not ready to accept others, tolerance is a negative word. It is very, very bad. One is tolerating means one will revolt at times, and when he finds an opportunity, he will revolt or he will backfire at times. Tolerance is a negative word. So, acceptance, when they are ready to accept, to become competent enough to accept, means they have to rationally scrutinize their religious texts, as we are doing, as it is happening since the times of Vedas. Even in the Vedas, we find, in the fag end of the Vedas, the core of the Vedas, as it is called the Upanishads, Adhruva, Yete, Plavaha. The Vedic texts are shaky, and Vedic texts are shaky and impermanent, and they are like the ships or vessels which are completely fragile with holes, and they are unable to take us to the other shore, like that the Upanishads say. And even the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said, Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, Yamimam Pushpitam Vacham Pravadam Tyamanishinaha, Vedavada Rataf Partha, Radhyadastiti Vadinaha. No person can be more critical than this, than Krishna. So, when that being the case, our tradition, at least select intellectuals who had a powerful control over the masses, they were critical towards our tradition. This is very important. In our tradition also, there are many fools, there are many fanatics, but more than the fools and fanatics, the people of wisdom and people of inquiry, they were in the position, and their word used to have a greater impact on the masses. To that extent, education was there and acceptance was there. And so, when Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita could be critical over the Vedic texts and their rituals, and yet they could become part of the Vedas, like Swami Vivekananda, the grandest recent example, and there are many such people, not to mention one or two. Can we show such unbroken tradition in those religions? It is not. It's not. If it is so, please enlighten me. If they graduate to the level, then only we can speak of they accepting the Indian culture. But it is not happening, and especially in this corrupt political situation, because of the wretched policies of Gandhi and Nehru, no way we can lead to that heaven, promised heaven. 2-3 questions are there. I shall read out, and in short. Okay. You say that we lack shatra, and that has, in a sense, led to certain decline. In that context, what is your opinion of nationalistic politics, Narendra Modi? You need not speak of Narendra Modi and nationalistic politics, but one thing I can just share with you. Nationalism is the only ism which is now running. We can't disown nationalism. What has happened now? The so-called intellectuals and the so-called social progressive thinkers, X, Y, Z and all that, they are corroding the very breath of nationalism. But when the whole world is for nationalism, when Americans for nationalism, when Chinese are for nationalism, when the Europe is on nationalism, when Japan is on nationalism, India cannot disown that. India cannot go away from that. See, many times we are compelled to follow certain patterns. I may not be personally interested in nationalism. I may think that I am world citizen, as Anand Kumar Swami says. But one has to accept that nationalism is the only running currency. That is in currency, and that is only the running horse. We should not go towards lagging donkeys. That's why nationalism has to be harbored. For that, the only way is going to the roots of Indian culture. Because India as a nation cannot be conceived either by Islam or by Christianity, not to speak of communism. Then what else remains? It is Sanatana Dharma. So Sanatana Dharma can only be an inspiration to nationalism, and that's why these people are cleverly attacking on nationalism. Because they know that when nationalism comes to the forefront, Sanatana Dharma naturally takes an upper hand. That they don't want. And so nationalism has to be encouraged. If not, we can't live. Let alone India living. We can't exist. Our economy will fall. Our sustenance will fall. Our governance will fall. Nothing will remain. West says Himalayas is a very new and young mountain. So does that mean, or can we in for Hindu civilization can be I will be grasping the essence of it. Can we say that Hindu civilization is recent? But one thing we should know, young in what sense? In the geological sense. Geological time scale is entirely different from the human history's time scale. In geological time scale, it's millions of years are counted like days. But here it is not so. And so, Himalayas are young with respect to what? With respect to the creation of earth. Not with respect to creation of Indian culture. And of course, we know our culture can be dated back to at least 10,000 years, as on the available evidences, whether it is the Bhuj findings, or the Saraswati river, or the early hymns of Rigveda, or the Ice Age, the recent Ice Age. Basing on that, we can say 8,000 or 7,500 BC, maybe, perhaps. We don't know it, but it's a vague but tenable dating. And so, 10,000 years is nothing in the terms of geological dating. So, we need not be bothered about Himalayas, young age, and other things. Please stop questions. Already it's 12.
Actually, we could answer some of them after the second part, if that makes sense.
No problem, I shall complete. Invasion of India by Aryans. Aryan invasion is myth, is false, is blasphemy, and what not. Aryan invasion never happened. Aryans are Indians. I'll be devoting some time specially for that. Then, is there an intelligent being in some other planets? Oh, sorry, I am not bothered about all these things. I am bothered about my country, my land, my people, and here GIPA, Gokhale Institute, TVG Hall. That's all. Again, I am saying these crazy thoughts should be left as early as possible. Nobody from any planet, any heaven came. And you know, our tradition never believed in early times a separate heaven. The most orthodox school of Vedas is of Mimamsakas. And the most important work of Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa, is Shabara Bhashya. That is the commentary on the Jaimini Sutras. And Shabara has clearly said, Swargamiti na kimapi sthalamasti. There is nothing like a special place called heaven somewhere. It's here. So we should not and we need not. And Yuga Pralaya and all, it's hoax. Those people who are Pralayavadis, please quit the hall. Please, I am very sorry if I am very, very caustic and brutal on these things, because these are the things which have corroded our country and our culture and our minds. These yugas and all these things, they are fictitious in nature. You see, this Krita Yuga, Kali Yuga, the end of Kali Yuga and all, people are encashing that, the wretched TV channels and all, they are doing it. It's all stupid mumba jamba. For the very simple reason, in the Veda itself, what is the definition of Yuga? I shall give you. And what is Krita Yuga and what is Kali Yuga? These Puranic descriptions, they are later, and they have certain other purpose to serve. The cosmic nature of time, the infinite magnitude of time, and also the pitfalls and highs and troughs and crushs of the cultural development, all these things, they are metaphorically presented in the form of yugas, and they are not realistic, and they no way connect with any facts. And people are speaking that. I remember in 1999, one book in Kannada came, and even it was translated to English, Pralaya, in 2000, copyrights reserved. I asked the same author, still he is living. I asked him, When the whole world is in deluge, why you need copyright?